that you'll be able to get. So we want to thank our South Franklin team for that. So I'm going to go ahead and allow our panel to share.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Schulman, and I'm the Spiritual Care, Bereavement, and Volunteer Coordinator for Judson Hospice.
My name is Veronica Allen, and I'm a speech language pathologist, and I am the regional director of the therapy departments across all 3 of the Judson campuses.
Hello, I'm Lori Paulson. I am the director of hospice and independent living across all 3 campuses.
Hi, I'm Beth Mansfield. I'm a registered dietitian at Crane House.
Good afternoon. I'm Linda Mervar. I'm a licensed social worker at South Franklin Circle.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Bridget Hill. I'm a registered nurse, director of Crane House.
Good afternoon. I'm Jessica Kulzicki, and I'm the executive director of Community Life, and I'm at all 3 campuses.
So thank you, panelists. And so we're going to start out with a few questions, and then certainly as we move on, if there's questions from the audience, we'll be glad to get those. So the first thing we're going to ask, and we'll start out with Lori, our nurse. As a nurse, you know, when you meet residents for the first time moving into independent living, what tools do you use to help identify what their needs might be, and how do you first help make that assessment in terms of what their needs are going to be as they move on to a particular campus?
So when people come here to, you know, explore and want to move into independent living at any campus here at Judson, we want to see an H&P. We want to know where the doctor sees them as far as their health and the things that they've been through, you know, through their health journey. And then we use something called a functional assessment because we want to know what the baseline is at that point. You know, are they, you know, walking on their own? Are they taking care of their own health? Are they exercising? Do they have good nutrition? Are they able to manage their own wellness? As well as, are they able to manage their own medications? We just want to know what that entire baseline is. Is that person, you know, bathing and grooming by themselves? And then clear up to the point where we want to know what that cognitive baseline is. And if they move in, you know, 6 months from that point, we may do that again, so we know again. And then once we have that baseline, if they're here for a year and we start to see something change, we're able to go back, do those assessments again, and get a new picture. And then that helps us the entire time that the resident is with us here at Judson.
So if you're doing that assessment and maybe somebody tells you, gosh, you know, the reason I may be moving on to a senior living campus is, you know, I've had a lot of falls. I'm in a 2-story, you know, home. I'm a little bit concerned about what's going to happen. What might you start to think about if someone shared that with you?
So if falling is an issue, then we would make various suggestions as far as, have they already been evaluated by PT or OT? Are they using everything that they could use? Are they really a candidate for independent living at that point? We have to see how they're maneuvering their current home. Are they able to live in a home that has stairs, or do they need something all on one floor? We like to see them walk. We like to see how they made it into the room. Are they using a cane? Are they using a walker? Should they be using those things? So as a nurse, we take, you know, that whole picture in and make that evaluation. And we talk about how the fall occurred. You know, that's one of the reasons we do like to go to the home, because we like to see how the home is set up as well. Are there a lot of throw rugs? Is there a lot of clutter? Is there furniture in places maybe that it shouldn't be?
And we all know it's really important for our health that we're engaged and interested, because none of us are going to change our behavior unless we really want to. So how do you as a nurse help the resident or the person that you're meeting with kind of select changes that they're going to be able to do. So how does that happen?
It's education. We want to educate and we want to hear those responses to the questions that we ask. Because you kind of know, someone will say, I've tried that, it didn't work. If they're not interested in their health journey, if it's one of those things, I don't want to come here, my kids are making me come here. There's not going to be that, I want to change to make this, successful for me. I want to come here to interact in the activities. I want to come here because I visited, my friend that lives here and I just love the food and I love the activities. It makes a difference if they're going to want to make the changes that are needed to come here versus, my son lives in Texas and he tells me I have to do something. Or, there could be, depression issues because of health changes. We just have to make that overall assessment to see if there's a hindrance that we can help them solve. Is it a long-term hindrance that isn't going to be solved? It's a big picture.
Okay, thanks, Lori. That really is helpful. And then I know on admission or even ongoing, Linda Merv, our social worker, is often really involved. And Linda, I know as a social worker, you look and make sure persons have some of the documents that they might need for health care, but you're also looking at, engagement and, how they're going to be able to adapt to the campus. Can you share a little bit about when you meet first with a resident, some of the things that you look at, and how do you help that person make it a good fit to move into South Franklin or another one of our campuses?
Well, I always start with saying I'm the social worker you don't need until you need me. Because most people we don't need a social worker. But more broadly, what I do is being able to get a good social history, find out about you. What is it that you like? What have you done all your life? Tell me about who you are. And be able to get a good feel for the things that are interesting to you, things that you've always enjoyed, and are there things you've always enjoyed that you can't or do anymore, or are there new things you've started to do that you would like to be engaged in? And so I try to get a handle on that as I talk with people. And so as people share their stories, sometimes I find out that maybe they have decided that there's a new interest that they have. They've decided to take up art. Okay, so great community to take up art, right? So we have some art classes, things like that they can participate in. We can match them up with different residents that have those backgrounds, or maybe somebody that is moving in because they recently had a stroke and they're recovering nicely, but maybe they have a few things that are hindrances from that, like maybe a little bit of trouble with speech or a little trouble with memory. And so I can suggest things like maybe some therapy even before they move in if they live locally, or connect them with a therapy team in their hometown if they're moving from out of town, just to say these are some things that they could do before moving in to even help them in their adjustment. When a person makes a move, moving is in the top 5 of stressors of life. So our job is to really try to minimize the stress of moving. That's why we try to connect people with the movers, with Susan Kent and her team that really help to facilitate where things go, get things moved. And then introducing you to different people on campus, because all those things begin to help the stress level go down a little bit. It's pretty tough at first, and depending upon the person, some people have moved all their life a lot of times and they're very adept at moving. Other people, we've been at home in the same home for 40, 50, 60 years, and that move is going to be much more traumatic, especially if we have lots of stuff. So it's being able to make suggestions and help people even prior to move-in. to have a smoother transition.
And I know we talked earlier in our presentations about cognitive and assessing how persons are doing with thinking. Can you share a little bit about the slums assessment that we use and how that helps?
So the assessment we do for cognition is something that we do for everybody on campus. It is a great baseline, gives us a baseline of people's cognitive ability, being able to test memory, and where strong points, weak points might be. If there's a decline at some point, we do another test, and we can see if there's much of a shift. So that helps us in being able to determine maybe how much help a person will have. If a person applies for independent living and perhaps don't do as well on a cognitive exam, we might suggest the use of a smart living professional or another person to help them as they adjust to the campus. In assisted living, we use it so that we have a better idea of the floor and the area a person would move to and how we can best serve them, in addition to being able to just help them make that smooth and know a baseline for them. So those are the things that we work on together.
Thanks, Linda. That's really helpful. So I know Veronica, as a speech language pathologist, and certainly with rehab, we know physical ability, the ability to be able to move, speech, all the things that go into kind of our activities of daily living are really, really important. How do you identify resident needs when you first meet someone, or how would you help identify therapies that might be helpful for them?
Well, as you heard both Lori and Linda mention, oftentimes we hear or someone comes to us with a referral. Someone has already suggested that maybe they need some therapy services based on some of the things that they've talked with them about, and they'll send folks our way. And then what we do at that point is we do, depending upon, again, what issue you may have, we would recommend occupational, physical, or speech therapy. And we do standardized assessments within each of those different disciplines to see where you are and if there's anything that we think that we can do to help you. So that's sort of the easy way, right? When things come right to us or someone had an event, right? Maybe your doctor is saying you need to go have therapy services because you just experienced this particular event. But there's a lot of folks out there who maybe they maybe don't have something significant that's going on, but we also want to make sure that we're helping everyone to maintain their highest level of functional independence, whatever that is. So we have opportunities to do a screening assessment. So again, if someone is a new resident to the community, we can come out, we can do a screening to see how you're functioning, what you look like, establish a baseline so that you can then, again, see if there's any needs that you have. We share with each of you that we see the recommendations that we have that will help you to be more independent, and we work together with the rest of the team to make sure that you're able to maintain that independence, whatever that looks like. We also have the opportunity to, again, we encourage anyone, if you have a concern, to think about therapy just not as I just had a significant event happen and I need to get therapy services, but if there's something that you're concerned about at any time, speaking to any of the caregivers here on campus, they'll be able to guide you over to the therapy team, and we can take a look and see if there's anything that we can do or any suggestions that we might have that can help you to, again, maintain that highest level of independence.
Can you share a little bit about the difference between physical therapy, occupational, and speech? What are some of the things that each of those therapies might help with?
Sure. Physical therapy is the one I think everyone thinks about the most. Physical therapy is to help you be able to move, right? To be able to walk or maneuver from one place to another independently. We can help you with transfers. We can help with balance. That's a big one. People start to notice some balance. They become concerned about falling. We can intervene before that fall happens and help you to work on your balance so that you can, again, prevent that fall from happening. We can work on strengthening, activity tolerance. All of those things happen in physical therapy. Occupational therapy focuses more on sort of the things that you need to do to get through your day. So simple things such as bathing and dressing, but then higher level things, medication management, light housekeeping tasks that you need to perform, meal preparation, any of those things that you might be struggling with, we can help someone with. Speech therapy, as a speech therapist, frequently people will say to me, I don't need speech therapy, I can talk just fine. But we don't just work with talking. That's one piece of what we do. So clearly if someone is having difficulty communicating, we get involved. We also work with memory. So if you're noticing, if someone's noticing that maybe their memory doesn't seem quite the way that it used to be, maybe it takes longer to sort of put your thoughts together and pull things out. Speech therapy will work with that. And we also work with swallowing. So if there's any kind of an issue with a swallowing impairment, if you're having any difficulty with chewing or swallowing, that's an area that speech therapy can support. Pain management, we work on pain management, both physical and occupational therapy as well. So if you can think of it, chances are we can help you with it.
Thanks a lot. So I know Diane wasn't able to join us this afternoon, and Diane does a lot with our wellness activities, but I'm gonna kind of put Jessica and I both on the spot to answer some of that. So we know that, while you're here at our community, it's really important to be engaged in a lot of our wellness and our activity under, a lot of our programs. And so, Diane and her group tend to look more at some of the exercise programs, some of the pool activities, things that can sort of enhance posture and balance and cognition. And certainly we have a lot of programs under activities that engage persons in art and music. So I'm going to just ask a little bit of Jessica, in your role overseeing activities, how do you help residents get to classes or things that, might benefit them, not only based on their interests, but really may help engage them, improve either physical activity, cognitive ability? How do you think about that?
Sure. So like many people on the panel, the community life activity directors and activity assistants, we assess residents as well. We like to get to know their likes, their dislikes, and we ask them if they have goals, if they are interested in, attending things independently or joining groups, because not everybody's a group person. We will individualize exercise routines, or even just encouraging people to get out and walk. And so I think that, community life and wellness would often work together in tandem to offer more variety and opportunity throughout the campus. And I also think that if somebody has more goals, we can work together to have them work on things on their own in their apartment. And I think that too, we've also worked in tandem to bring in some fun, different activities. We work and partner with Groundworks, which is the dance movement. And so, I think that too gives the opportunity for residents to participate and be active, but with other community partners.
Mm-hmm. I know in health and wellness too, we're able to do balance testing called a rapid test. I don't know how many persons have taken an opportunity to do that, but it really looks at your balance, but it uses very good tools to not only measure where your body is in space, how you position yourself, but it also affords activities and exercises that may improve balance. So I know Diane and her team try to direct persons to classes. I know she'll often reach out to therapy for some opportunities, but it's a really helpful way to have something tailored a little bit more to yourself. So I think as we get better at the work that we do, we're always looking at things that can be more specifically tailored, as well as individually across our campuses. So and then we have Beth here today too, and so Beth really is focused on nutrition, and we know how important nutrition is to wellness and activity and brain health. how do you help the residents in Crane House, and I know you've helped persons in independent living too, guide their food choices, things that can help them feel better, as well as be, a good, healthy choice for them?
I think the most important thing is to eat variety and to eat what tastes good to you. It's so important for people to enjoy what they're eating. Eating is such an important part of our life. And so because of that, healthy means different things to everybody. So, one person might think that it's healthy to eat 3 meals a day. Somebody else might think it's healthy to eat dark green leafy vegetables all day. It's different for everybody. So it's important to get to know people, to know what they like, what they don't like, how they've been eating before. Not everybody eats 3 meals a day. Not everybody eats breakfast. Some people like to sleep in. There are people that are grazers that really don't eat a meal and just eat all day long. So that is really important to part of nutrition, because you have to keep that in mind. If you want somebody to enjoy their food and to eat, you have to be able to provide them with those foods. And then you also have to consider what they're able to eat. And throughout our lives, our diet's going to change. And it doesn't mean that it's going to become any less desirable, but it just might mean that there are things that need to be modified, or we need to just be encouraged to eat. And especially for brain health, like just I always tell people just to eat the rainbow is really the best thing to remember, is eat the dark purples and eat the reds and eat the yellows and the oranges and the greens. And that's going to give you the nutrients that you really need. And also just remember to drink. Fluids are so important. And that's something that a lot of us as we get older don't realize, but our thirst mechanism changes. And we don't realize that we're thirsty as much as we get older. So that's something that I always encourage people to do.
Mm-hmm. We also know, and I think Dr. Lafayette might have mentioned it too, but we have less saliva as we get older, so sometimes it's harder to, choose certain foods. So, important to drink, and, our teeth often change. And so a lot of the things that help us eat are really important to kind of look at as we get older. And so, even my saliva is changing. So, it's just something, again, all those things can certainly affect us. When someone has, a particular illness, maybe they have diabetes or they have heart disease, how do you help them maybe still keep that rainbow, but maybe think about things that can help with that particular disease? How does that happen?
So I think the first thing to do is to consider, how are they eating? Are they eating enough food to maintain their nutritional status? And that will tell me where I go from there. Do we need to worry about sodium? Do we need to worry about potassium or phosphorus? And do we need to worry about fat? Because I always tell people, if you're not eating, if you're eating 2 meals a day or something, then you probably don't have to worry about some of those things, because you're not really eating that much sodium. And does that make sense? Yeah, so sometimes I think people will get caught up in, oh no, I can't have any sodium, or I can't have any fat. But when you really look at things, you can. It's okay. And, things can always be tweaked along the way. But the most important thing is to make sure you're getting the nutrition.
And I know you work a lot in Crane House, so as persons sometimes have, more memory issues and more cognitive delay, we're really focused on their quality and just keeping them, as comfortable as possible and really keeping them at the focus. How does nutrition change a little bit sometimes as persons have more memory issues? Do we worry as much, or what do we try to do differently?
Well, yeah, yes, and, it's really interesting too, because I have family members who say, well, my mom never ate cottage cheese, or my mom never ate tuna fish or something, and as we go on in life, there are things that we never used to like, and now we eat. And I see that with my children, I see that with my parents, and it's just a part of life, is on, so I feel like it's important to offer people a variety, because you don't know if they're going to try that and like it. And so I don't think it's a good thing to necessarily eliminate, well, not eliminate, but just limit things for them.
So trying to offer, as much as we can at any time when persons want it. Okay, that's great. Thanks. So Elizabeth, I know you're a chaplain and you certainly work a lot with our hospice, but we know that everybody has like spiritual needs that need to be nurtured, and that's such an important part of us. How do you help support the spirit and then help persons, as they're aging, kind of process all those changes? Because that's tough.
And fun.
And fun. But tough.
The thing about spirituality is it's so individual. And so I really work to build relationships with people and understand how they define spirituality for them, what brings them meaning and purpose, and looking at the things that might challenge that, whether it's physical or cognitive stumbling blocks, how to identify those things, and then focus on the thoughts and beliefs and physical actions that bring them meaning, and focusing on those and building a life that centers around things that bring you joy, so that despite our aging bodies, or we can still find meaning and really have a joyful life.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What kind of things do you, maybe what sort of things do persons maybe bring to you without sharing a certain person? What kind of things do you find our residents need, guidance with, when they come to you? What sort of things do you see?
In this community, a lot of it is caregivers for someone who has dementia, and continuing to enjoy, for example, a marriage where one of the spouses is really kind of becoming a different person, how to find meaning and continue that relationship in a way that doesn't feel burdensome and feels like it's a new sense of person within the relationship. That's something I encounter often across all three campuses.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. And then I know as sometimes we decline over time, we're also trying to think about, when is the right time to maybe think about assisted living or memory care. And I know certainly Bridget and you, Jessica, do a lot of work with our residents. What kind of things would you want to give guidance to? When is the right time to sort of think about a different level of need? Like what do you look at, or how do you help people get to that point?
A lot of the residents, that come to Crane House, it could be like a physical change. Maybe they need assistance in their, thank you. So a lot of the residents that come to our assisted living in Crane House, it could be like maybe they need assistance with like their daily living needs, or medication management, or even being at home and just needing more engagement with other people around them, or activities, things like that. We even have residents that, the house is too big. I don't want to care for, I don't want to make dinner. I don't want to do all these things. So I prefer to come into assisted living and enjoy that community lifestyle.
Mhm. And I know for all of us, sometimes isolation can be difficult. And so would that be something maybe you would think about too?
Most definitely. As I had mentioned, sometimes isolation in the home, kids moved away, things like that, or whatever the scenario may be, you may want to be in that community environment. We have the activities, people have different lives. As we talked, everybody's individualized. So when people come, to us, or, we have referrals or things like that, we're wanting to get to know that person, what was their life like? What are the things they enjoy now? So we can, specialize our care plan to cater to that.
Mhm. And I know, Jessica, you've worked with a lot of residents in, independent living and as they transition, so particularly with persons, with cognitive issues. And what kind of things do you help persons in independent living, but then think about maybe when is that right time for that move?
The time is never easy. But I always say there is a window of opportunity. I think it starts with talking about it early, sharing with the team what you're going through in independent living as you start to see either those age-related changes or if there's something more serious going on. And I think surrounding yourself with the team members in order to look ahead and plan. And I think that's a lot easier than to transition into assisted living rather than waiting for a crisis to happen, because then that's even more difficult on you as a person, or if you're caring for a spouse or partner. The team plays catch up a little bit. We're trying to get things in order too quickly, and it doesn't seem as smooth. So I think having those conversations earlier is very important. And I think to add to Bridget, especially about isolation, it's a time of fear. You could be afraid, you could feel a lot of emotions, just with change in general that can happen, and especially when you have something happening to your person. That could be a pretty scary place. And so I think that kind of stops people from sharing or stops people from making that next transition. But oftentimes, and I think that everybody on the panel will say that we've had people say, gee, I wish I did it sooner, because they feel like it's a safer environment. Maybe the space is a little bit smaller, but it's more manageable now. Or there's more to do in the immediate. If somebody becomes a little bit lost, they just can walk out of the apartment and there's other people, whether that's the team or other residents that may be going through the same thing. So it improves the quality of life, and I think that it connects people with community quicker.
So I wanted to thank all of you for all of your comments. One of the things I think about is, each of us have a bit of a specialty. So as you all help residents, and any one of you can answer, how do you help keep us all informed? So you might be working with somebody for therapy, Beth might be helping with a diet or some food choices. How do we keep everyone, informed so we all know what's going on and we're kind of working together?
So one of the things that we do is we have interdisciplinary team meetings weekly, and it includes all our disciplines. And we discuss the residents. We talk about diet, dietary, their ability, function, therapies there. Linda's there. I mean, it's a group discussion, and the whole goal is just to be able to better serve the resident, looking at them holistically. Even spiritually. So it's a holistic approach.
Yeah, we often get sort of information too from persons that aren't always part of this team, but sometimes security dining, maintenance. Other persons on campus will alert us to someone that might be struggling, having some difficulty. Another resident might share something. So we really try to look into each of those kind of things anytime, there's any concerns by security, lets us know they've been maybe out to a resident's home a few times overnight. We try to make sure we're getting that information from all different places. I know sometimes not everyone wants to come to us, and we try to do it in a way that we can meet the resident where they're at. I guess I'd like to close before we open it up to questions. If all of you, as you think about what you do every day, if you have one little tidbit of advice that you might want to give, and you don't all have to share, but if something comes to mind, what might that be? Like, what would be that one tidbit that in all the work that you've done that you might want to share? Everybody had a tidbit.
I would say, be flexible. I mean, when transitions, it takes time to make a transition. Transitions are big. And sometimes, families, they want something instantaneously and to make it all perfect, but just be flexible. As we're getting to learn that resident, things like that, we just want to be able to give that resident the best we can. So sometimes it takes time just to really know, maybe this works, maybe this didn't work. So we just want to make sure that we're giving the best care that we can.
I was gonna say, if you have a worry or a concern, speak up, share with someone. There's a lot of different people here that can help you and guide you in the right direction. So if you're worried about anything, just letting someone know. Because oftentimes if we speak up early, a bigger issue can be prevented because we can take care of it early on instead of waiting until it becomes a big problem.
And I think sometimes we get so used to knowing ourselves and everything that we don't think something's important, but it's really important when we're getting to know people. Tell us everything you can. The more we know about you, the better off it is. And even if you think it's not important, you'll be surprised, because there's so many times that I talk to people and talk about food preferences and what they like and everything, and then suddenly I'm like, oh, do you have any food allergies? Oh my gosh, and so it's really like things that you don't think are important really are important sometimes.
I would say, this is kind of off the cuff, but there's the directory with everyone's picture in it. And I study that almost every day, because behind every face, there's a story. And I've gotten to know so many of you just because I recognize your face. And I think for each other to go to things that you might normally not go to, and to introduce yourself. One of the biggest indicators of longevity is casual relationships. So to build upon that, you'll find, I think, many similarities amongst each other on the campus.
I was going to say, one of the things we know about brain health, and it's really true in the evidence, is to do something different. So if you go to the same restaurant every week, pick a new one. If you sit at the same table because you don't have an option to go to a different restaurant, sit at a different table, invite a different friend, go to an art class, even though maybe that's not something you normally do, but like shift it up a bit. It makes our brain, challenge things a little bit differently and think about things in a better way. And it does seem to have shown that it improves longevity. So I guess we all have to do something different every day. So what I wanted to do is just open it up to any questions that you might have, or things that you want to know, and we'd certainly be happy to share. Yep. Yeah, we can get the mic to.
Maybe you have some suggestions when you're dealing with denial, either the person themselves or their spouse. Nothing is really wrong, and they may be absolutely not knowing what to do at all. I'm sure all of you have some suggestions.
Well, I would say, I I think just having a conversation, and sometimes it has to be a little more practical for people because you kind of have to win the right to be heard and know that that person, first of all, that you care about them, that you have known them or gotten to know them, and then be able to show in maybe some very practical ways, things that maybe are areas that they could use some help in. So, I mean, it comes about very gradually, and most of us, a lot of times, like to be in denial about certain things because it's scary, you know? So just trying to surround a person with understanding that you're here, you've got a lot of support, there are a lot of people to support you, and that maybe we can work on something so that whatever area it is that's not functioning as well, that we could maybe improve on it. And I mean, genuinely, there are times you just have to take time and time and time with people before they maybe accept, you know, the willingness to get some help or the willingness to get some other services.
I think for a lot of persons too, it's fear. You know, if you are starting to maybe know you're having some problems, but you see persons that might be worse than you, or you volunteer in Crane House, or, you know, you go somewhere and you see that and you think, well, that's not me. Like, that is not me. Like, I'm never going to be like that, because it's scary. You know, your neighbor falls and you're like, oh, I don't want that to be me. And like, you know, things happen. So I think it's just hard to, you know, get persons to look at. And I think the biggest thing is to, you know, be able to form a relationship with one of us where there's some trust. I know we do, you know, try to have care conferences with families. We, you know, try to bring in, you know, anybody we can that can help influence that. I know the other thing, we know how hard it is on the person that's the caregiver. And sometimes we can, you know, if the person that's having the problem still has enough, you know, ability to process information, you know, sometimes we can turn it that, you know, your wife, your husband, they're really struggling. They can't keep up anymore. And so we need to do some different things for you to help your wife. So, or your husband or your friend. And so, you know, I think there's a lot of different ways to do it, but, you know, I think we all don't, you know, that's a natural protection for each of us. So I think it's trying to, you know, develop some trust with, at least if you can get one person, you know, then we can kind of get it going.
I'm speaking sort of from a personal point of view, but my husband has, I like to call it early stage dementia. He's still very functional.
Yeah.
And the time is going to come, though, knowing the disease, where he is going to go to Crane House. And you talked about the team, you know, letting the team know, or who's the team? Are you the team? I mean, where would I even start?
We're the team.
So, but that's a good question. Probably, if you think about it, everybody that's employed at this campus is part of the team. So, but you can start with a nurse, the social worker as the part of the team, and then go on from there, kind of expand from there.
Because we'll usually, you know, try to bring in others that can help. You know, if there's some things we can do, you know, to help some of the things, like Jessica's great, therapy can help. You know, we might have some suggestions, because I think, you know, we always see everybody's first goal is to try to stay at home as long as possible, as long as it's kind of healthy and safe. And I say healthy and safe for both parties, because sometimes persons' behaviors can be very, very challenging, and it may not be safe for that other person. So trying to think about, you know, having those conversations, and, you know, I think Jessica, you know, shared too, it's always difficult to know when that right time is, but we always hope that the person who is transitioning still has like enough reserve, and I call it reserve, to be able to adjust. Because when it's so challenging and so difficult, they just have very little ability to sometimes engage in the community, you know, and so we try to think, you know, what's that right time, and it's different for everyone, but trying, the more that I think we're involved earlier and can help, the better, you know, we can provide some guidance. And even thinking, you know, too, I mean, there are medications, there are things that can help at certain times, you know, and just wanting to make sure that you're engaged with a physician that can help you, you know, just because there's, everyone's a little bit different, and there's things that can help certain people at certain times, and then, you know, sometimes those things are very effective for a while, but then they can change over time, so.
Is this on?
Yes.
I guess I don't know where to start. I know I should do a lot of things, but I don't know how to jump like this. I don't know how to jump start. I mean, I know I should take a balance class. I know I should go swimming and exercise. I've been here 3 years and I still haven't been in the pool, but I know I should do it one of these days. I tend to overextend myself with all this trivia. And I think, well, how am I ever going to fit that into my life? I remember a year or so ago, a lot of the therapists here, they just created a little, they know people. Yes, quite a few people. I'm not very good with my phone or computers or things like that, doing anything online. And they just had a little, couple times a week down in the great room, and you could just go there with everybody.
She turned it off, you can't hear.
You can't hear? Well,
It's on.
so on now?
Elizabeth's gonna help you there, I think.
It's on.
Yeah, just hold it close.
Okay. Well, anyway, any hints as to how to jumpstart and get going on the things you know you should do? Suggestions?
Yeah, so,
I mean,
you know,
I have to do it, I can't.
right. Do you have a friend? A lot of times a friend is great. You know, if you have somebody you can do an activity with, somebody likes to go to eat, somebody likes to swim in the pool, you know, maybe catching up with someone who does enjoy those activities, and you could partner. You know, just drop down to the pool. It's open every day. You know, just take that one step and just drop down there, and, you know, because for all of us, it's just that one thing. You know, I promise myself every week I'm gonna walk, you know, well, I walk up and down the stairs, so that's good. Then I might one day just go walk around the neighborhood, but it's like, it's just very simple. You gotta do one thing, and then, you know, you feel a little better, and you're like, oh, I should do a little bit more of that. But I always find phone a friend is, you know, you have the most luck with a partner.
I think also, making a schedule, and also taking advantage sometimes of the Smart Living professional team, because it's hard to get started on a new pattern. But if you work with somebody one-on-one and know that they're gonna pick you up, and that's your new goal is to go to the pool, or your new goal is to participate in a particular wellness class, or your new goal is to attend a new function that we're having here at South Franklin. The Smart Living professional is a great person to go with you, to meet you there, and to be able to kind of make the appointment. So then you can kind of get your foot going in the right direction. After a while, you have that pattern started, and then it'll be easier to do, and you won't need the Smart Living professional anymore. Who are the Smart Living professionals? So Smart Living professionals are, we have a couple in the room here, but we have a whole team of individuals that are employed through our Judson Home Care Services, who are available to be able to take people to the grocery store. In other words, if you don't want to drive to the grocery store anymore, or you don't want to grocery shop by yourself, and you don't want to go on the bus, Smart Living professional can go with you to the grocery store, give you more one-on-one attention. They help with everything from going to a doctor's appointment with you to an activity, just a plethora of activities that they can help with one-on-one. So.
I'm a regular pool goer and I highly recommend it.
So you should get together and be a friend.
You do have to watch the hours because the group class is very heavily attended and you can't just go in then because people are doing the community thing. And, but anyway, what I wanted to ask, the speech therapist, you kept using the term, now I lost the term, but you were talking about events that happened. And I gather that means a fall or maybe a stroke or something physical. But could that also be something like a big family wedding and you're so excited about it that maybe that's taking all your attention and you can't quite get your words out? So it's not just the physical part of it.
You're correct. You're correct. It's not just the physical part. And I think when people think of therapy, what I was saying is oftentimes they think, well, I had a stroke, I fell and I broke my hip, so I have to go have therapy. But sometimes if you're thinking, wow, this big event is happening and it's kind of overwhelming me, and I'm feeling a little bit like I can't kind of keep everything all together. Maybe this is an issue that maybe I want to just speak up and say, hey, this happened. I wonder if there's something that you can do to help support, because oftentimes we can't. It doesn't always have to be big. It can absolutely be something small that happened in your life that you kind of felt like, oh, this took a lot of my time and energy and I feel like it shouldn't have been that much. Is there something that you can do to support? So that's why I'm saying it's important to reach out if you have a small concern, because oftentimes we can get involved, or maybe not, but we might have some good suggestions for you of how to help you to manage that type of event in the future.
Any one of us who gets stressed about anything, it makes it much more difficult for us to think, to take in new information. We just get really distracted. We all think we're good at all this stuff coming at us, but we're really not. We can only handle one thing at a time. We think we can handle a lot. And so we always feel, I think each of us would feel a little bit better and clearer when there's just one thing in front of us that we're handling, but when all those things come at us, it's really hard. And that doesn't matter what age you are, it's very difficult.
I just want to say that the pool people are terrific at introducing people to the pool. If you can picture yourself going and standing at the end of the pool and saying to yourself, now what?
Yeah.
Kevin or Shelley, they'll take you into the pool, they'll explain just how to cope with it. And it's a great way to get started.
Is there any other questions? Yes.
When you're evaluating a health or social interview with a prospective resident who wants to live in independent living, and red flags start to fly up, but they're set on independent living and so is their family, how do you handle that?
So we make these evaluations and then we sit down with the committee and we discuss those red flags. We have the word that I want. We have the responsibility to be honest with that prospective applicant and their family, to let them know that IL is not the best choice, as well as we bear the responsibility to give them the opinion of what will make them the most successful here at Judson. So we cannot just say, well, that's what you want the most, so and then say, come on in, because it sets us and them up for a bad situation and for failure. So we thoroughly and spend a lot of time discussing those red flags. And then we go back to those families or those couples or those individuals and we say, based on the health assessment, based on the social assessment, you don't qualify, I apologize, for independent living, but here is what we can do for you at Judson. Or sometimes we go back and say, you can go to independent living with these stipulations. You have to have a home health aide this many hours a day. You have to have an SLP. So it's not just automatic because that's what the person has chosen.
I think our biggest challenge is when we have couples and, one person certainly could be in independent living, but the spouse would be very much challenged. And, it's different when you move in together and you're both healthier and it changes over time. But when somebody's going to move in right away with those challenges, it's very, very difficult. And so those are some really hard conversations because we also think about each of you, because everybody moves into independent living or chooses where they're going to be based on their needs. And so you want to be in independent living because you're independent and you want to be around persons that are independent. And we know that that's really important to the residents that live here too. So we want to be sure that the persons that would move into independent living are going to be like you and can engage in the community. So it's hard because, sales will meet with persons, but until you spend time with people and you do some assessments and you process with them, you find a lot of things out. And we'll try very much to do assessments in the home if they're in this area, because we find out a lot about just how they're living and who's helping them. Sometimes you find out, oh, they're really independent, and then you find they have an aide in their home 12 hours a day. Well, it's not independent. Or they have a housekeeper, but she lives there, during the week. So those are the kind of things that we look for. But, we, like Lori said, we always want to make sure the person that moves in is going to be successful. And it's going to be a good fit with those of you that are here too, right? Because it is a community. Yep. You have it too. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, we've been talking about the team and the interdisciplinary team. And these are exactly the types of situations like what you're bringing up, that all of the members of the disciplinary team, we all come together and each one of us has a different specialty area. So each one of the people brings something different to the table. So we all problem solve together to figure out what's the best avenue, to pursue and how to go about that and how to help the individuals that are in that situation. And, we're trying to make those decisions.
Is there any other questions? Okay, well, I wanted to thank everyone for being here, and I wanted to thank all of our panelists because we know what a great team you all are. I did want to share with you that we will have our next session next week. That is on, actually it's 2 weeks, Thursday, October 26th at 4 p.m. And that session is going to be hearing from a couple of families, what their experience was like moving into the community, some of the things that they thought about, and maybe a little bit about what we could do differently. So don't really know how, we'll hear from them and their experience, because I think each of us are always looking for ways that we can do the work we do better. So, we appreciate you listening. If you have suggestions, that's great. I think after we, hear from some of the families and the residents who have made those choices, we'll know more. So, and then our final talk is going to be on living wills, power of attorney, some of those documents that are important for having all of your sort of decisions documented. So we appreciate your time today, and we look forward to seeing you on October 26th at 4. Thanks, team.